guys, it's TheFrXion here, Second Tank 1-2, however you call me, I don't really care. And welcome back to World of Tanks. We're back on the test server, and actually I just downloaded it, and I thought, you know what, I have about an hour time. Let's take a look at the Rinoceronte, because that is the big new implementation in this patch. That is the Italian heavy auto reloading tanks. And the Rinoceronte is the tier 10, and we're going to make a little bit of a preview for this tank. So let's take a look at how it actually performs in this video and what it actually looks like. It's a real interesting vehicle. It reminds me of the reward tank that you were able to get for the ranked season, the American one, since it is basically just a gun and the turret is kind of weirdly placed at the back. It looks like it's just a gun platform, to be fair, but still quite a wide vehicle, but it's not very large. It's not very big, especially its profile. It's really small. If you compare it, for example, to some tier 10 German heavy tank, for example, like the Maus, you can see that you can basically put up two Rinocerontes on top of each other and you still wouldn't be as tall as a Maus. Now, obviously, that was a bit of an unfair comparison, since the Rinoceronte is one of those heavy tanks that is supposed to be rather small, and it has quite a few features that we're going to be checking out in just a second. This is a very interesting tank, in my opinion, because it is supposed to be that perfect gap between medium tanks, or it's going to be breaching that perfect gap between medium tanks and heavy tanks, because it combines the mobility of a medium tank with the size of a medium tank, with the basic premise of a heavy tank kind of gun and a heavy tank kind of armor. Now, this hybrid is going to be quite interesting, and probably it's going to be quite interesting to see how they have decided to balance this thing. Because on the one hand, you do not want it to be too fast, you do not want to have too much armor on it, or else it's just going to be Object 430U all over again, but this time with an auto reloading gun. So they obviously have placed some things in there to actually balance this tank out, and we're going to take a look at some of those balancing tools that they've actually added. And one of the very first thing I've noticed is you only carry 33 shells in your tank. Now, a lot of times you will not be running out of shells to fire. You'll be dead before that, long before that. But still, some of the games where you're going up against several tanks, there is a possibility that you might run out of shells. But still, we're going to take a look at the firepower, the survivability, the mobility, the concealment, and the spotting, and then we're going to take this bad boy out for a ride. So let's take a look at the firepower. So 490 is the alpha damage for this gun, which is quite interesting, since it is a 127mm gun, not a 120mm gun. I think the tier 9, if we do go back to the Progetto 54, the tier 9 version, it actually has a 120mm gun, and you actually get a different kind of gun with a bigger caliber. So 490 alpha damage, that is on par with the IS-7, for example, and the Object 277, I think. 268 millimeters of pen, and you are running APCR shells as standard. Let's take a look at how fast they travel. Shell velocity is 1,452. That's pretty good. That's almost on par with the premium shells of the Leopard one, which is about 1,500, and I think that is one of the fastest flying shells in the game. So this is better than the standard shell of the Leopard one. That's kind of interesting to see right there. Then you have the shell loading time for each and every single one of the shells. You can see we have a pretty good crew on it. I have decided to put on vents just to see how well it does. We're going to be playing 2 games in this video, or actually I'm going to be playing 2 games, and I'm going to be looking if I'm going to be putting 2 games into this video, or if I'm just going to be putting 1 game into it. I don't want to keep you guys for too long. This is just a preview. You can see 18.7 seconds, 15.9 seconds for the second round, 14.7 seconds for the third and last round. And yeah, you can see it's the auto reloading function, but there is a little bit of a catch. If you fire while there's this mode where you do not get a penalty, or you get a reduction of 50% during that kind of special window. That is actually one of the reasons why you're supposed to be firing in between that, so you can still finish off tanks. That's something that the medium tanks cannot do, and something that I think is maybe kind of misplaced, since it's kind of a very forgiving mechanism, and does take a little bit away from the skill on the prototype, not the prototype, but the Progetto 65 and the Progetto 46 and all these medium tanks. But we're gonna see how it works. The full load time is 49.2 seconds each time you actually have in between firing. Let's see, time between firing shell and loading the next shell in the magazine is 4 seconds, and then numbers of shells in the magazine is 3. Yeah, the traverse speed is 27.38 degrees per second for a turret. That's not too crazy, but you have 10 degrees of gun depression, which is quite impressive. It'd be really interesting to see if you have more gun depression on the side or on just the front. Looks like at the rear you're not going to have the same amount of gun depression. The gun elevation angles are a bit worrisome. 15 degrees is not a lot, but you can see that this turret is very much restricted at the back. So if you want to, crank this turret up, it's just going straight up into the compartment, and this tank is not very large, so it's going to be quite limited in its range of being able to aim upwards or downwards. Then the aim time is pretty impressive, 1.66 seconds for a fully aimed in circle. 0.3 dispersion or accuracy at 100 meters is really, really good, and 2006 damage per minute. That is all not too shabby. Now the DPM, let's talk about the DPM real fast. This is a auto-reloading vehicle, so the DPM right there is not as impressive. 2006 certainly doesn't sound like a crazy amount if you're playing at tier 10, but I think you can probably still work with that, especially if you use... I think this is going to be one of those tanks that is really good in the hands of a really good player, and it's maybe not going to be as good in the hands of a player who just started World of Tanks and doesn't really understand the mechanics, because that's what I've noticed with the tier 8 premium heavy tank. Because if you're, if you pay a little bit of attention, you can have really good games in it, but if you do not pay enough attention, you're getting smacked all over the place. So your hit points is 2000, that's not too much. You have 135 millimeters frontal hull armor, 70 on the side, or 75, 40 on the rear, 190 on the turret, 120 on the side, and 120 on the rear. So the armor is obviously not the best on this vehicle, but it certainly is still going to be bounced some things. If you're in a hull down position, I think if you look at the turret, it does seem to be quite nicely angled, and you're probably going to be bouncing off those cheeks at the back. But as soon as this tank is kind of seen from the side, you are on the same ridge line, I think it's going to be struggling a lot. The side here, the turret, the gun, it's just so long, and I think this is all just still a turret. So yeah, have fun defending all of this. You have to turn your turret towards them like the Kranwagen, but this time around you have basically a huge turret on the side. The only thing that's kind of trollish here is probably going to be this part right here. So if you shoot, like if you're aiming here, he drives forward or backwards, and you hit this plate, it's going to be bouncing upwards because of the angle. But other than that, you're going to be able to go right through this side here because it's only 120 millimeters thick, and you're going to be safe from high explosive, I'd say. Not a lot of tanks have 120 millimeters high explosive pen. Some of them do, but not most of them, and then it's still going to be a 25% RNG decision if it's like 25% more pen or less, and we're going to see if it's going to go through. But we're moving on to mobility. I've already talked enough about the survivability and the firepower stats right there. This tank weighs about 45 tons. It's rather light if you consider it to be a heavy tank. 700 horsepower is also not too strong, but in comparison to the weight, you get 15.48 horsepower per ton. That gives you 40 kilometers per hour top speed, 12 on the rear. If we have mounted a turbocharger class 1, we probably would have gotten 43, 44 kilometers per hour top speed. And the hull traverse is 34.28 degrees per second. That is not too bad, but nothing special either. But yeah, 40 kilometers per hour, that's the question. Is it going to be enough? That's right up the alley of maybe a E5 with a turbocharger or some other tanks, but it's not as fast as the IS-7. So you're still going to be looking at quite a bit of a deficit if you're going up against Soviet tanks, which you certainly will. Now, concealment and spotting are going to be a thing, right? This tank, I think, has base view range 390, like a lot of other tier 10s, so yeah, maybe train your crew for a bit of view range, add up binos, maybe not binos, but coded optics is always an option. But I'm just going to be putting up main gear for major fighting because I want to go take this bad boy out for a spin in a hilly area. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. It's a heavy tank, so the concealment is not going to be that great, but you can still work with that a little bit if you double bush and everything. But you know what? Let's jump into a game and see if we're going to be using that as gameplay or not. Okay, you know what? We're gonna try to do this live action kind of way. We're going to be playing the Rinoceronte with you guys. And actually, this is a quite interesting setup because we only have one Rinoceronte in this matchup. And it's actually me and another guy in my team. But we have about 3 Rinocerontes on the enemy team. So to fully play out our ability and our strengths, we're going to be driving over to the what do you call it? Let's call it the western part of the map with the hills. And we're going to go there and see if we can sit somewhere up there and use our gun depression to our advantage. Now you can see the 40 kilometers per hour top speed. Yeah, it's not the worst. We're certainly making way right here, 22 kilometers going up the hill, but you're not going to be the very first vehicle in combat as a heavy tank, so just keep that in mind. It's certainly something you have to keep in mind when you're traveling with this tank. It doesn't seem to be the most mobile, but you can still keep up with certain medium tanks. Not the Batchat, for example, but maybe the E50Ms if you drive the same route. So you still have to be a bit careful if you're crossing the open field with this tank. Maybe you should still take the long way as I did right there. My mouse settings are all over the place since this is the test server, but I think we can make do still. You can see we've just fully loaded there, and we can talk about the reload in just a second. These are also the new settings. We're gonna have an overview on this test server in probably 1 or 2 days. I'm gonna do another video about that. But first and foremost, let's get to those 2 medium tanks over there that are just about to get absolutely annihilated because they're playing way too aggressively right there. Maybe not the best start of the game, but we can make do. We can make do right here. I don't have the best spotting, so I might be in a bit of trouble in just a second, but let's see how well this tank does in a sniping scenario. There's a Scorpion, a Super Conqueror right there. Oh yeah, and remember, this tank has some of the best. There we go. That's exactly what 490 Alpha does to you. And this tank has some of the best shell velocity in the game, so keep that in mind. You can see right here, now if I fire now, I'm not going to have a penalty. I decided against firing at that point, and maybe I should have fired when it was telling me to fire, because then I would have gotten a 50% increase in, or decrease in reload time. That would have been really nice. But what I really enjoy about this tank so far is the gun depression. Look at this hill. This hill right in front of us is allowing us to basically just only put our turret out and be completely hauled down. That's another question now. Well, in a hilly terrain, this tank is really good. It's in its element. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this tank is going to be, once again, a hull-down vehicle that you cannot really hurt? Or is it going to be something that you can still challenge, maybe by hitting certain spots that maybe are not 100% reliable to pen, but let's say about 50. so every second or third shot would go through. Yeah, those are still questions that we have to have answered before this tank comes out. Because other than that, we already have tanks such as the Super Conqueror and other vehicles that are similarly based like this one. And now I'm just going to see if I can use this little hill in front of me to my advantage. There comes a Rinoceronte right there. Look at that alpha. That alpha is really, really nice. We just did 530 damage, 505 damage in 2 hits. And yeah, he's basically dead. That Rinoceronte is now on 1000 HP. And no, we deleted 1000 HP off of him. Half of his HP right there. Oh, no. That Rinoceronte over there is in a hold-down position. Now we have that Rinoceronte's ass. And the 4 second intrepid reload is still quite brutal. But we're gonna finish it off. And we've done 3252 damage. Now keep in mind that's something you can really do when you are in a when you can dictate the pace of combat, when you can decide when to attack, when not to. But certainly that worked out pretty well in our favor, flanking around them. But the reload time is still long. It's still long, but it's pretty impressive the amount of damage that you deal with three shells. It's 1,500 guaranteed almost. And yeah, that burst potential, that's going to hurt a lot of enemy tanks. But it takes you 12 seconds to fully get your shots off right, so... Actually, we bounced him, I'm not really sure where he fired that. We're gonna be side-scraping now. And we're gonna just get the final kill on the medium tank in the city. Now we only have a Leopard 1 and the Conqueror GC. So yeah, not too bad, not too bad. If you're not under pressure with this tank, you can actually decide when to fire, when not to. I thought right there it made a lot of sense to not be reloading when there was an IS-4 coming in. So we still had the opportunity to take out the STB-1 with the 3 shots. That's exactly what we did. We secured a kill, we secured the maximum amount of damage that we could right there. And we dealt about 4,000 damage. Right, so far we bounced 2 shells, we got penned ones, and it's quite interesting to see that the STB-1 bounced our lower plate with heat. Actually, the alignment where you actually combine the lower plate with the upper plate. But that was the very first game, and I can say so much so far. The gun handling is pretty impressive. I have a pretty good crew on it as well. It does do quite a lot of damage with the alpha. The reload time is quite long, but you can work around it if you are able to work with the mechanic and if you have a little bit of patience. But that's nowhere near a fair test so far. Well, actually it was a fair test, tier 10, but keep in mind that the test servers are always kind of randomized. Because people come into the test server, they play around a little bit, and they you know, enjoy their time, but maybe they don't really play as well as they would on the random server because it doesn't really mean anything. This is just the test to trial out these vehicles. But yeah, the Rinoceronte, so far so good. I think. Would still like to see what this tank is capable of in a hold-down position. And I think I'm going to be trying it out in just a second again. And I'm going to see if I can just show you guys the gameplay afterwards. And we're not going to do it live, else we could be sitting here for quite a while. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to go back and see that we actually get some gameplay on this tank in a hold-down position. Found the perfect kind of gameplay, or the perfect kind of scenario for this vehicle, and it is actually game mode that I do not enjoy a lot or a great deal, which is grand battles, I think, right here. Yeah, grand battle. But this position right here allows us to go up a hill, which we can actually use to our advantage. FFGs, no under pressure. So let's see what we can do right here. Oh my god, this is bloody disgusting. It's not go out too far. But with the 10 degrees of gun depression, you can basically just, it's like you're throwing your gun over the ridgeline, firing over towards these guys. I'm just going to be reloading real fast right here. And do we have any open targets? Let's see if we can utilize the moment right there. Okay, I used the fire, or I used the moment, the new function. I fired exactly at the moment, and I had a reduction of reload time right there by about 5 seconds. And we still know that the Rinoceronte is right there, but I think we're gonna load fully because we got smacked by artillery just a second ago. It actually hurt quite a bit, 477. To be fair, on a hill like this, if they're below you, like this Rinoceronte is down there, and you actually spot them, which is quite interesting. It actually showed me that I was not able to go through the lower plate on the tank. Ooh, and we actually bounced one off our turret right there, and we tried to get our flat car instead of going for our side armor over there. And he did the same again, because this time around we actually faced him. Yeah. That is not good. It's not good. But if you do get caught out, like that object 277 just did right there, you're gonna be feeling the pain if he's able to fire up to you from a position below you. It's going to be quite painful. But let's see if we can actually press this ridgeline. Look at that gun handling. That gun handling is godlike. At least it feels godlike. We're going to be punishing this TVP again. I couldn't wait anymore because he would have been below that little ridgeline, and I would not have been able to hit him again. So yeah, you can see that this tank on a ridgeline looks pretty damn impressive to me so far. Okay, let's clear. Okay, I wanted to see. There's the T-62A that we can actually hit from this position right here. 509 damage dealt. I really enjoy the Alpha. Yeah, he got me this time around because we were maybe pressing over the ridgeline a little bit too much. Second shot though bounced. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, again, the lining where the upper glaciers meets lower glaciers, this tank does bounce quite a bit of things. And there's the T-62, and it's time for us to move in, destroy the object. Right there. See if we can balance the Rinoceronte, and you can see that this turret is really, really good. He just bounced our turret, even when we were down on even ground, bounced our turret, and yeah, holy crap, this tank so far is actually pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie, it's feels powerful. I'm not gonna say overpowered yet, because I've just played 2 games in it, but I think my average damage on this game, or on this tank in the last 2 games, is about 5k, almost. Yeah, hull down, it certainly is really, really competitive. And yeah, it kind of combines, it shows a little bit the fears that I have made, or that I've talked about previously in the preview when we were looking at the tank. And the gun handling is really, really good. Okay, I'm also using quite a bit of equipment to make the gun handling really great, to have the lowest amount of bloom. That's just how I like to play my tanks. I want to be accurate, I want to be able to hit the targets if I have to hit them. And it looks like this combination works out pretty damn good. I'm not even sure if vents are needed. Maybe you can just switch it out for other things that might just increase player stats. Okay, that heat round really hurt me. And I think the second heat round that he might throw my way might just kill me. But I think he just lost vision of me, so there's the Rinoceronte. Sounds like they have new music in the game as well. Oh yeah. 5.5 thousand damage dealt, 1,700 damage blocked, 1,200 damage assisted through our spotting or through tracking the vehicles. That does not sound too bad to me. This is going to be a really interesting kind of thing. I think that artillery might be the only way to balance this tank if it's in a really good hold down position. I just missed that, unfortunately. But what can we say? This is a preview. These things are still subject to change. They might just still overwork the entire line before they release it somewhere, I don't know, maybe beginning of February or end of January. That's at least when I'm expecting this tank to be coming out, but yeah, holy shit. Not too bad. 5,000 damage dealt. We received a little bit of damage on our way out, and certainly an interesting vehicle. As I mentioned previously, I'm looking forward to unlocking this entire line, but what can I say so far? It feels really powerful. Feels really powerful. That's exactly what I meant. It feels really powerful in the hands of the right player. Maybe it's not just even that, but the amount of shells I bounce. It's a new tank. People will learn how to shoot it and where to hit it. I can just tell you guys, this area right here where the upper plate and the lower plate aligns, and it's like a little bulge that's created where this entire thing kind of combines. Be careful, do not shoot at it, shoot it below it or shoot above it, but do not shoot that little flat part right there, because it seems to be the strongest part of the upper or the hull armor, because I've bounced basically everything that went right at that position, even heat shells from the T62A. Try to aim below it. Look at those things down here. Try to aim below it, hit below there. And if you have the sight turret of this vehicle, hit the gun. Do not shoot too close to the gun, but try to aim a bit further right here. This area right here is a good area to hit, or the side armor or that part at the back, but do not try to hit right here in this area, because you're going to be bouncing most of the time if you're unlucky, because the player can be moving backwards and forwards, and the chances of you bouncing right here are quite high. So this is quite interesting to see. I don't know if this is a weak spot now, because I've not seen anyone hit me right there, but it should be armor. It should be like a spot you can hit. But so far, this tank seems really powerful. It seems to be a very good haul down vehicle, and kind of makes me a bit worried. In the sense of, we cannot have another haul down tank with no weak spot at the top. That can be really, really painful, again, for every World of Tanks player. Because as soon as this tank comes out, everyone hears about it being amazing in haul down position. People will buy it, will free XP their way through it, get the tank, and it might just be a free-for-all once again. But that's all I'm going to say. This video was long enough. I hope you guys did enjoy. This is a little bit of a thorough video. I hope you don't get too upset, but we really covered all the points, and I see you guys on the next one. It's probably going to be a review of the tier 9 version, then we're going to go down to the tier 8 and tier 7. Until then, I see you guys on the next video.